You're listening to An Amber a Day, the Functional Nutrition Podcast, and I'm Amber Fisher. On this podcast, we talk all things fertility, autoimmunity, functional nutrition, lifestyle, motherhood, and more. We talk about everything on this podcast. So I'm excited that you're joining me here today. I think this is episode 28 of the podcast. And that's exciting because I've been doing this for 2 years and we're almost getting to our 30 episode mark. So I'm thrilled about that. And what I like to do to start the podcast off is talk a little bit about me, what's been going on in my life, and then get into our topic. So today's topic is supporting your immune system. So I know this is kind of the time of the year for that, and I did a Instagram TV video on this subject just a few days ago. And so here I am doing the podcast, incorporating some of you guys' questions and the things that you wanted to know about. And we'll get into all that today. But first, before we do that, a couple little housekeeping things and stuff that's been going on with me. So the biggest thing, the thing I'm most excited about is that Gabriella Rivera, and I have finally published a project we have been working on behind the scenes, something that we are really, really excited about. It is called Eat With Us, and it is a TV show, YouTube channel that is all about two nutritionists, the two of us, who are great friends and also love to eat out. And so what we do is we go to different restaurants in San Antonio, we eat, and then we tell you guys why we ordered what we ordered, how to make different things compliant for different diet types. So we're excited about it because we feel like it's a kind of a gap in the market. Like a lot of us either like to eat out or have to eat out for different reasons, and it can be hard when you're on any type of diet protocol to know what you should eat. But the biggest thing is that her and I are just such great friends. We have really, really good chemistry. We've been working together for a while now and have always wanted to do a project together because we're separate practitioners, but we've shared office space, and we just wanted to do something together just to show like the fun that we have together and really share that with you guys. So don't worry, it's not going to be nutrition dogma, it's not going to be boring educational, it's going to be fun, funny, we're going to have a good time with it. We are going to be real people and eat what we really actually would eat, so it's not going to be all salads all the time. But anyway, the first episode is already live. You can follow us on our channel there. It's called Eat With Us _SATX. And we will be doing, we've already gotten tons of requests from you guys, so I can tell that y'all are as excited as we are. So, you know, on the docket are fast food places. There are some other restaurants in San Antonio that people have requested, so we are going to do it all, and we're really, really excited. And thank you all for the support for it too, because we, when it was Gabby's idea, so I have to give her the credit, but when she told me the idea, I was just like, this is perfect. We're going to run with this. It's just the perfect thing for us to do together. So we're excited. Please join us there, and we plan to hopefully have an episode at least every month, and maybe a little bit more often. So all depending on what you guys want us to do. And don't be afraid to try to stump us, because we love a good challenge. So let's see. That's all that. What's going on in my personal life? You know, same old same, just here at home raising my baby. So, you know, going to these restaurants with Gabby is such an experience because I stay at home mostly all the time now, with COVID and everything. And so I haven't been like going to restaurants that much. I mean, I'll be honest that I still have been going, here and there, you know, as long as I felt like it was a pretty quiet place and, you know, everyone takes precautions and all that stuff. But going with her to the place where we shot our first episode was a little bit freaky because there were a lot of people there. We ended up going on like a Saturday. And so it was pretty packed, and it was a little bit like, should we really be here? But we wanted to really get the footage and get the episode, and so we did it. But man, isn't that crazy? Have you guys gone to restaurants or like been out? Don't you just feel so weird? I was telling Daniel the other day, Daniel's my husband, I was telling him, I'm like, in the past, you could not catch me in a restaurant that was too quiet. Like I would not go in because I always felt like it was so awkward to be one of the only people at a restaurant. Now when I see like there's we go to Payway a lot, and it's like there's never anybody there, at the one we go to, so it's like we have the whole place to ourselves and we're like, yes, awesome, because like we want to go out and sit in a restaurant or at least outside of a restaurant and not feel like scared of everything. So the world is just so different. I can't it'll be funny down the road as things kind of return to some sense of normalcy to think back on this time and just how much of a challenge it was for all of us mentally. Like so many things about my life are different. I had to let go of so many of these little hang-ups that I had, these little things that I thought were so important, like being in my physical office space, and meeting my clients there. Like that was big to me. And now I realize like it's not that big of a deal, like there are ways to work around it. I was so nervous when I was pregnant about, what am I going to do about my business and my baby, how am I going to choose? And now that I've been doing it here for over a year, I'm like, okay, so we make it work, right? Like we're moms and we just make shit work. So sorry for cussing, but moms deserve it. We really do run the world. Without moms, what would you do, guys? So anyway, that's that. That's really the major stuff that is going on with me and everything. So I'm still working on writing my book, and it's going to be on fertility nutrition. So I'm working on that and feeling really good about that. And I want to give a shout out to an avid listener. I know she's listening right now, and she's a client of mine as well, who recently got her PhD. So Dr. Carrie Haddock, Dr. Haddock, how are you? Are you listening? Congratulations to you. I'm super thrilled for her. Dr. Haddock and I did a podcast recently together. It was the one where we talked about advocating for yourself as a young woman with health needs. So check that out if you want to hear a little bit more from the very talented, very smart Dr. Haddock. So congratulations to you, my dear. All right, let's talk about our topic today, because it's when I'm recording this right now, it is 12:40, and I know that baby is not going to sleep that much longer. So we need to get through this. Okay, so immune support. Now, this is a topic that I like talking about because this time of year you always hear the phrase, here's something that'll boost your immune system, right? And I even used to use this phrasing because it's catchy and like it's what people want to hear, right? Oh, I want to boost my immune system. But the truth is that your immune system is sort of like exists in a balance, and you don't actually want to boost it too much and you don't want to suppress it too much. You want it to kind of be right in the middle. Like you want it to be able to fight off infection and fight off viruses, but also you don't want it to be so overactive that it's attacking your own tissue. And that's when we get into autoimmunity. So I know a lot of you who listen have autoimmune conditions. And so, your issue is not so much boosting your immune system as it is, suppressing some of that immune activity. Now, does that mean that you need to go out and eat like fast food and stuff that causes inflammation, so you'll suppress your immune system? No, that's not what that means. But it does mean that the whole point of supporting the immune system, that's why I'm saying supporting, is really to find a good balance, right, with your immune health. Now, how do we go about doing that? There are several different kind of pillars of healthy lifestyle that support the immune system. Fundamental to all of this is diet, right? Of course, I'm biased. I'm a nutritionist. I know, guys, I talk about diet all the time and how it's like the most important thing. But, I was always surprised when I first got into nutrition. Before I became a nutritionist, nutrition was my hobby. Okay, so I used to read nutrition books, and I probably, like a lot of you, I would listen to nutrition podcasts, and I'd read books, and I just thought it was just so cool. These people who just knew all this stuff about food and the healing power of food, and I was fascinated by it. And still to this day, even as a somewhat jaded, sometimes clinical nutritionist, I can tell you that I never cease to be amazed at the healing power of food. Food just really, it has so much potential to make a difference in our lives. So what am I talking about when I talk about eating to support your immune system? Well, fundamentally, we're looking here at nutrient density, right? So we're looking at having enough nutrients, vitamins, minerals, things like that. So vegetables are key. Fruit is key. Fruit gets a bad rap, guys. A real bad rap. I can't tell you how many people come in to talk to me. I feel like this is becoming a little bit less common now that keto, I think, is sort of starting to fall out of favor. I'm going to go on a little rabbit trail here. So I've been around, those of you who are wondering how old I am, I'm 32, okay? So I have been around in the nutrition world, like interested in the nutrition world since I was in my like early 20s. So I've seen a few trends come and go, right? And you know, when I first got into nutrition, it was when paleo was really big. So like 2012 kind of time frame, right? And paleo was a thing. Paleo was the answer. And I even went into nutrition school thinking that paleo was this like magical diet or whatever. And the longer that I practice clinical nutrition, the more I realize that really each person is individual. And we all have a different place that's ideal for us. There's no one diet that works for every single person. So when I talk about keto, you know, some people thrive on keto. They really do. I've seen that work really, really well for men. And some people thrive on intermittent fasting. If I am being totally honest, I fast a lot. So I don't love to recommend fasting to my clients because most of my clients are dealing with chronic fertility issues and chronic adrenal issues and autoimmune issues, thyroid issues, which are all counterindicated for fasting. But you know, some women do well with it. I do. So you know, there's a balance to be had. When we talk about fruit, this is how I got on this topic. Fruit getting a bad rap. You know, when keto became the big thing, which it's been, I would say, probably for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so. When keto became the big thing, everybody started villainizing fruit, like talking about, oh, you know, an apple has so much fructose in it, and that's so terrible. And you know, I just roll my eyes because fruit is nature's gift to us. Like, what better gift does nature give us than fruit? Like, sure, nature could have given us all like broccoli and spinach and stuff and told us that all your nutrients can get and antioxidants you'll get from those things, right? And they don't taste super good, and you know, we just have to kind of choke them down. But God, nature, whoever you want to thank for this, gave us fruit trees to give us this sweet, beautiful nectar of the gods. Like, fruit is amazing. Fruit is wonderful. Let's not hate on fruit, all right? Now, with that said, always be careful about moderation and balance because fruit can be sugary. There are some fruits that are more sugary than others. You can't go wrong with berries. But even, you know, other things like apples and mangoes and watermelon can be fine. You just don't want to eat the whole, like, what I always say is don't eat fruit at the expense of vegetables, right? Eat vegetables, and then fruit is like your thing that you let yourself have as a dessert, or you let yourself have in balance as a snack or whatever. But fruits and vegetables, fundamentally, the reason we're talking about this for supporting the immune system is that those are the places where you're going to get the most nutrients that are going to boost that immune system. Not only that, but they have antioxidants, they have quercetin. Quercetin is a really cool nutrient that is often in these like natural allergy medications because it helps reduce like histamine production. And so quercetin is great for like seasonal allergies. It's great for immune balance and all that stuff. But not only do those foods have that, they also have a lot of fiber. And fiber is really, really important for feeding our gut bacteria. And our gut bacteria are really, really important for balancing our immune system. I know I've said this a bazillion times, and I will probably say it a bazillion more times. You can put this on my tombstone, okay? 80% of your immune health resides in your gut. Now, that is a very simplistic way of looking at gut health, and looking at immune health. And I recognize that. I mean, how does that account for the entire lymphatic system, for example? How does that account for, insulin blood sugar balance, which are part of the immune health? It's a simplistic way of looking at it, but simple, easy to remember. So much of your health, so much of your immune health resides in the health of that ecosystem. That, what we call microbiome, all the bacteria that live in there. There are more of them than there are cells in your whole body, so they really run the show. They have direct connections to your brain, direct connections to your skin, your reproductive organs, every part of your body, okay? So they're huge. And fiber is part of what feeds those bacteria. Fiber also helps a lot with preventing dysbiosis. So this is when the bacteria balance gets out of whack. And what I see more than anything in clients is either a very reduced bacterial balance. So usually like antibiotics and things like that from the past can kill off beneficial bacteria, and so you're left with this situation where there's just not a lot of bacterial activity going on in there, and you're just like really low. Or I'll see dysbiosis, so I'll see like overgrowths of stuff, and that's not just SIBO, right? Although SIBO is kind of one way that can manifest, but I'm talking about overgrowths in the actual colon, so of different bacteria. It's very important for there to be balance in that system, because that system then feeds into your immune health. So I don't want to spend like a ton of time going over like diet to a T, okay? Because all I really have to say, all I really have to say is there's two kind of pillars of diet that make sure that you're going to be a healthy person. Number one, eat your fruits and veggies, guys, or veggies and fruits, I should say. Your leafy greens, your non-starchy vegetables. I'm not talking about sweet potato. Now, that's fine in moderation as well, but really the bulk of all that needs to come from non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, like spinach, like, God forgive me, kale, like asparagus, green beans, and so vegetables that are not as starchy. And then second to that would be fruits, and then third to that would be starches. So your legumes and your potatoes and all that kind of stuff. So that's pillar number one. Pillar number two is blood sugar balance. Fundamental to human health, your blood sugar has to be balanced. That looks different for different people. And a lot has to do with your activity level, your muscle mass, all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally it comes down to how healthy your gut is and how well your gut processes your food, and then how much exercise you do and how many carbohydrates you eat. So it's a balance with all that stuff. This blood sugar issues may not come out on blood work right away. It may take time for it to show up in your A1C. A1C is usually where you would look, because that's like a marker of your blood sugar balance over time. Your fasting glucose and all that, I mean, it's not super helpful. Fasting and postprandial insulin is a really cool measure, but you typically don't get that on like regular blood work. But A1C is a good place to look, right? And sometimes blood sugar issues don't show up on there. Particularly, I see this a lot in women with PCOS who have major blood sugar issues, but like their A1C looks fine because they make enough insulin. So blood sugar balance is all about slowing the release of carbohydrate from your system, knowing your weaknesses, knowing where your body struggles. So, for example, if you are a healthy, athletic man with a ton of muscle mass on you, you can probably eat a crap ton of carbohydrates, even simple carbohydrates, rice, potatoes, all that kind of stuff, and it will be fine because you need it for muscle recovery. We talked about this in Eat With Us in the most recent episode. I had just come from a workout, so I got potatoes and stuff because I needed that extra recovery for muscle building, right? Because I'm working on building some muscle. So if you're on that side of things, you can stand to have some carbs, particularly after workouts. is the best time to have them. If, however, you are a woman dealing with fertility issues who has PCOS, your carb count at different meals might need to be significantly less. But here's some basics to kind of help you. Whenever you have a starch or a heavy carb, you just want to have protein with it. Fat helps too, but not as much as protein. I think we need to really put more focus on protein, especially for women. Women tend to not eat enough protein. But we're talking animal-based proteins. Plant-based proteins can be good too, but you need to make sure that you have complete proteins. And the problem with plant-based proteins is a lot of times complete protein sources like rice and beans, for example, is a complete protein when you put them together. It's still got a lot of carbohydrate in it. So it's sort of like if you don't tolerate carbohydrate well, it's going to be a problem. If you do, it's no big deal. So you have to know yourself. But always having a protein source with a meal is very, very important. And I would say, I would put that with snacks too. You know, like I'm big on protein being with each meal and snack. Even if it's just like some nuts and seeds, which are not like the greatest source of protein, but it's something if you're having it with fruit for a snack. But during meals, I like to have a nice piece of protein and then my carbs along with that. So blood sugar balance, making sure if you ever feel like weak and shaky between meals, get like sweaty between meals, feel like you like have to eat and then eating makes it better, that's a sign of blood sugar issues. So what that's indicating is that your blood sugar is going too low, probably because you ate too many carbs at the meal before and your insulin went up too high and then it took your blood sugar too low. So then you have to eat to bring your blood sugar back up to stabilize things. So if that happens to you fairly regularly, that's a sign. And depending on what you ate, like if you had like pancakes with nothing else and syrup on them, well, yeah, or like cereal. This used to happen to me all the time when I was growing up. I would have cereal for breakfast because I didn't know that I had PCOS and insulin problems and all that. So I'd have cereal for breakfast, and then by like 11 a.m., I'd be like shaking and like sweaty and weird and like feeling like panicky, and I would have to eat something. I would just like have to eat something. I have many memories of being in like high school and being like, oh no, I'm getting shaky, and my mom had to like pull into like Chick-fil-A or something and get me something to eat because I needed to eat because my blood sugar got too low. Okay, so if that happens to you, that's a sign. And depending on what you ate, you can tell kind of the overall health of your blood sugar balance, right? So if that's happening to you when you're eating like a meal with protein and stuff in it, well, then there might be some concerns to look at. But nutrient density, blood sugar balance, those are the two pillars of healthy diet that make sure that your immune system is supported. If your blood sugar is out of whack, what happens is that your immune health gets suppressed because your body is under this sort of systemic stress. And so it can't deal with things properly. It's interesting too that your blood sugar gets high when you have an infection. So if you've ever had an infection, like your white blood cells were raised, for example, and your blood sugar was high when you had blood work done, there's like interesting correlations with that. So blood sugar being out of balance is sort of like a stress symbol for the body. It's a survival thing. So we want to pay attention to that. Okay, that's diet. Now, equal to that, I think, to those pillars of healthy diet, are figuring out sources of inflammation for you. And I didn't go into a ton of detail with this on the IGTV because it's just so much to go over in such a short period of time. But looking at what is inflammatory for you is really, really key. So, I'm big on food sensitivity testing. I think food sensitivity testing is like an amazing tool. It's not perfect, but it's an amazing tool. It helps me so much as a nutritionist. But if you do have food sensitivities, those sensitivities are causing a source of low-grade inflammation in your system, which then is causing stress that's suppressing your immune health. So we want to make sure that we get all of that under control. You can eat those two pillars of a healthy diet, but if you have a food sensitivity and that food is included in those two pillars, then you're still going to run into issues potentially with your immune health. So I see this a lot, especially people who have autoimmunity. Food sensitivities are super common here. And if you tend to get like colds and viruses and stuff fairly easily, especially in the wintertime, and you have autoimmunity, that's where I see a lot of overlap happening, because your body's just like not resilient to things as much because it's under so much stress, and the immune system is just like running wild. So it can't like tackle everything that's coming at it. So I think it's really, really important to look at food sensitivity. There are other sources of inflammation too, though, that could be going on. Blood sugar being out of whack, that's a source of inflammation. Adrenal issues can be a source of inflammation. If you're not sleeping well or sleeping enough, that can be a source of inflammation. Speaking of sleep, let's talk about that, because that's the next sort of pillar here. And sleep is complicated, so I want to spend some time on it. The issue with sleep is that, first of all, I know it's not convenient. So we'll just like start off by saying that. I know it is not convenient to get enough sleep, okay? Especially if you're a woman who, maybe you're a mom and you work and you have your baby, or shoot, you just have your baby, right? Or maybe you are not a mom, but you have a lot of responsibilities on your plate. Maybe you're working on your PhD, Dr. Haddock, whatever it may be. You're busy. You're a busy person. This is a busy world we live in. We prioritize busyness. We worship busyness. We idolize busyness. I can tell you that I certainly do. Like, I don't feel worthwhile as a person unless I'm busy. And that's something that I've had to work on with myself over the years, and I'm still working on to this day, because I tend to bite off more than I can chew. So getting those precious hours of sleep doesn't seem that important, especially too if you're trying to lose weight or you're worried about your health. A lot of times we will wake up super, super early, like 5 a.m. to go to the gym. The gym stuff, like waking up super early to go to the gym, it's okay for some people. It works fine. I mean, I know, like, Gabby, my friend Gabby, who I do the TV show with, she goes to the gym super early in the morning. I know plenty of people who go to the gym early in the morning, and it doesn't affect them badly at all. But those people also really prioritize sleep and get enough sleep and go to sleep early enough that they can fit that into their schedule. If you are a woman and you are dealing with any type of chronic health issue or weight issue, and you are punishing yourself by waking up to an alarm super early to go to some sort of boot camp or go to the gym and like drain yourself, you're not doing yourself any favors. You probably actually would do better by just sleeping those extra hours. Sleep is so fundamental to our health and so fundamental to our immune system that if we do not consistently get enough sleep, we know we're very vulnerable to colds, flus, infections, things like that. So how do we get enough sleep? Because we know it's important. We hear it all the time. Oh yeah, it's important. But it's like, okay, roll your eyes. What am I supposed to do about it, right? The next podcast I do is going to be all dedicated to sleep. So I'm not going to like talk your ear off about it here. But there are some things that we can do to improve the quality of our sleep. First, look at your sleep environment. If you haven't done this yet, you need to do this. Okay, so blue light filter on your phone from like 6 p.m. onward. At least 3 to 4 hours before you plan to go to bed. So let's say you're gonna wake up at 5 in the morning. 4, 3, 2, 1, 12, 11, 10, 9. So you need to be going to sleep at 9 p.m. Sorry about you. Can't stay up watching The Crown. Or the new Selena documentary. The new Selena series. Have you guys watched it? I watched it already. It was super cute. But anyway, you're going to need to go to bed at 9, ma'am. And how are you going to do that, right? So we have to trick our brains into getting sleepy. One of the ways we do this is by producing melatonin. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to take melatonin. Taking melatonin, I'll just tell you right now, it's a waste of time. It doesn't work. Okay, I think I've met like 2 people in my life that melatonin actually works for. Your body produces melatonin when it's not seeing blue light. So traditionally at night, be by candlelight, we wouldn't have TVs and all these other screens blaring at us, and so we would naturally produce melatonin, get sleepy, and go to bed, right? When it's dark. So we have to sort of trick our brains into doing that now because we have so many devices. So blue light filter on your phone, for sure. I turn that thing on. I keep that thing on all the time because it hurts my eyes to look at that blue screen. So my screen's always orange. Do it for your computer too, your laptop, or if you have an iPad or whatever it is you're using. You can't, to my knowledge, do it to a TV. If somebody knows how to do that, hook it up, let me know. But as far as I know, you can't do it to a TV, so you have to turn that TV off at a certain time period. So what I would do is, of course, like you're supposed to turn your TV off like 3 hours before you go to bed. Ugh. But I get it. Okay, you put the baby down, you just want to watch a few episodes of Selena. So in that case, if you're really having trouble with sleep, you might think about switching over to a laptop or an iPad or something where you can put the blue light filter on, and that'll help. That'll help with that. And for sure, an hour or so before bed, 30 minutes to an hour before bed, you need to get into your bed. You need to have some sort of routine, just like I do with the baby. I sleep trained him, right? So before I put him to bed, he gets a fresh diaper and he puts on his PJs, and I turn on his little sound machine and we close the curtains together. We sing a song and he gets in his little sleep suit pajama thing, and then I turn on his little glowworm. We have a whole routine. And that puts him right to sleep. He starts yawning right when I bring him in there, like he knows, So we got to do that for ourselves too. Wash your face, do your skincare routine. This is what I do. I go to sleep every night around 10. Every night about 9:30, I wash my face, put on my PJs, do my whole skincare routine. So I got a whole routine here. I'm in my mid-30s. I got to keep this looking young. And then I go and I sit in bed and I just get cozy. I have a pregnancy pillow that I'm just never ever going to part from. I love it so much. And I keep the bedroom really cold. And then I do stuff on my phone, but nothing stressful. I don't look at anything work related. I don't even go on, I try not to go on social media. I'm not super great at that. Fun social media I try to stick to, but not work related social media. Sometimes I even just do Pinterest, or I'll read a book. So do all that relaxing fun stuff that I've waited all day to do. And then when I start feeling sleepy, I take that cue and I go to bed. I turn the lights off and I go to bed. I don't push through it to be oh, well, it's not quite my bedtime yet. If I start yawning at 9:30, you better believe I'm going to sleep at 9:30. Cutting out that blue light is really, really important there. Having a routine is really, really important there. Another tip that I mentioned, keeping your house cold. So there have been studies that have been done that said that if people sleep in around 65 degrees with a nice warm comforter, they sleep better than if they keep their house warmer and sleep with a sheet or lighter blanket. So it just makes you feel safe. And so that really helps as well. So that's your whole sleep time routine. That's going to help. Now, I recognize that some of you are I do all this, right? And it doesn't work. So if that's the case, if your mind is running a lot before bed, or you get a second wind at night, you probably have some cortisol issues. And those may require a little bit more specific intervention than just a sleep time routine. So it may require supplementation. It may require, and I usually like to test before we do that, or it may require some other type of intervention. It's possible too that your GABA, which is an anti-anxiety neurotransmitter, is low. And so sometimes we have to do supplementation that improves GABA balance so that we can feel sleepy and we can feel relaxed. So it's not just about feeling tired, because many of you will recognize this wired but tired feeling. So it's not just about feeling tired, it's also about feeling relaxed and not anxious and not stressed. So, and there are ways to work around that. So if your sleep issues are more specific and they're not solved by a proper sleep routine, then there's a lot that can be done. But we need to do that work, right? if it means working with a professional, whatever, we need to do that work because that sleep is really, really important for our immune health. Okay, moving on. Rest and boundaries. This is huge, guys. Totally huge. We have got to take breaks. So when I was talking about idolizing busyness, it's easy to put your worth into your output, but you are a worthy person whether you complete your tasks for the day or not. Take it from somebody who owns their own business and is very self-motivated. I never finish my to-do list, ever. Every time I get close to the bottom of it, I add like 100 more things to it, because as soon as I get close to meeting a goal, I've already got 4 or 5 new goals that I need to achieve or that I want to achieve. The list never stops. It's never going to stop. The only time in my life that I ever can recall having a real break where there was nothing on the horizon and nothing in the past bothering me was right after I got married back in 2011. I just graduated college. I was young, guys. Just graduated college, got married. I did not have a job on the horizon. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And at the time, I didn't really care because I had just gotten married. The wedding was over. All the planning was done with that. Graduation was over. I had no schoolwork. So on our honeymoon, I slept like 9 hours, at least it was like 11 hours a night, and then I would take like naps during the day. I was so tired. I was exhausted. And when we moved into our first place and we were getting that all set up, and I didn't have a job for a few months, I just remember feeling like bored. So we make ourselves busy to prevent that sort of feeling of boredom, that feeling of like lack of self-worth, because if we feel like if we have enough things on the docket that we're getting done, we can prove to other people, we're like proving our existence is worthwhile, right? We're proving that we're like, it's almost like with busyness, we're apologizing for our existence. I had a mentor tell me that once. He was like, why are you apologizing for your existence? Like, you're a good person. Like, why do you feel like you have to justify being alive to other people? And it's true. So the point of this is to say that when we make busyness into this idol, we forget the importance of rest. And rest can feel very confrontative, right? We give ourselves some space, and we start thinking about the other things that we need to do, and we feel like we're procrastinating, and it gets very anxiety driven. So we have to be intentional about supporting ourselves in adding rest to our lives and giving ourselves permission to have it. And that's a mental thing, guys. Nobody can give you permission to have rest except yourself. Put the to-do list away. Take time for yourself every single day. I don't care when. I like to do it before bed, in the evening, and in the morning before the baby wakes up, because I like to bookend my day like that with rest and just like doing stuff that I want to do for fun. But however you want to fit it in, it's so important. Not being rested, whether it's not getting enough sleep or not having enough breaks from the routine of life, is a stress that causes a lot of drag on our immune health. With that said, incorporating boundaries is really important too. This is something that I have had to learn as a With that said, incorporating boundaries into your life is really an important part of this, because if we don't have boundaries set up, we won't have time for rest. Trust me, I recognize like how difficult it is to set boundaries. I'm like a huge people pleaser. I always have been. I'm not as bad about it anymore as I used to be. But, you know, I think back on like some of the things that I did early on, even just early on in my business. And like I was already in my like mid-20s when I started my nutrition practice. So I had already like done a little bit of growing up, like had other jobs and been employed with other people and done different things. So I should have learned these lessons. But I've been a late bloomer with boundaries, let's say. I remember some of the ways that I used to bend over backwards like crazy at the expense of my own health and my own happiness early on in my business for people who really didn't ask me to do that. And if they had known how stressed out I was, probably would have just told me to just like chill. It's okay. This year too has been big with boundaries for me. Trying to figure out a way to do it and still be perceived as nice. That's where it gets me, and I think a lot of women deal with this too. So I'm just trying to be totally honest about stuff that I struggle with, because I know some of you guys are like this too. But it's all about being liked and being nice and not seeming critical or not seeming too aloof. Sometimes I can come off kind of aloof, and I'm really not. I'm really a warm person, but you know, the thing about setting boundaries is like I always feel like people are gonna like not like me. And so this year has been really, really big on setting boundaries for me, because as my business has grown and as my responsibilities have increased, I have realized that I just don't have the time to do everything that I did before. So one thing that I implemented, and you know, my clients who have been with me from before this through now know that I've done this, and you know, thank you guys for being so sweet about it, but I had to incorporate boundaries with messages from clients. So I used to be completely open to messages at all hours. I gave my clients my personal cell phone number when I first started, and they could text me, call me anytime. You can see how quickly that got out of control. Because, you know, the people who, like, your soulmate clients, like some of you who are listening right now, super respectful, would never, like, step on my toes or try to, you know, like, push in on family time or anything like that. You know, but you always have people who are not going to respect your boundaries or your work-life balance and feel like, well, I'm paying this person, so I'm going to, you know, call her at 10 o'clock at night. Like, I'm not kidding, I would get calls and text messages late into the night. And I used to tell people, hey, that's fine, go ahead and text me. I put do not disturb on my phone, so don't worry about it, I'll look at it in the morning. And you know, this year I finally was like, you know what, that still damages me, because when I see that first thing in the morning when I wake up, if I wake up and look at my phone and I see that I have missed messages from people, then I can't enjoy my rest time in the morning. I can't enjoy my quiet time in the morning. And that quiet time is really important for my health. So I've had to incorporate only answering messages a few days a week. And everybody's been really great about it. So I think the thing about boundaries too is, like, especially if you're a person that doesn't like to set them or doesn't like to say no, you feel like people are going to be like upset with you. And then you make the boundary and you set the boundary, and suddenly it's like, oh, people didn't really like care that much. Like, they're really not upset with me about it. And that's kind of amazing. So all that is to say that boundaries are big. What do boundaries look like? Well, I think if you're interested in this topic, there's a really good podcast I did on this with Renee Claire, who's my business coach. And I forget what episode it is, but I'll link to it. Well, we talk a lot about boundaries, and she's more the expert on this than I am. But I think for me, the biggest part of boundaries is just learning to say no. Just learning to say, you know what, that's not for me. I get a lot of opportunities, especially as a person who's been doing this a while, and I've kind of made a little name for myself. People know who I am, and there are a lot of people who are who want to collaborate or want to do this or want to do that with me. And The real trick has been to learn, what things do I really want to do? I don't have to do things just because it sounds good on paper. I do what I want to do, and I put the energy into what I want to put, and then learning to delegate too. I'm working towards that. Learning to take some stuff off my plate and let somebody else handle it. Not being so type A about everything, right? That's all boundaries. So that's a huge part of supporting the immune system, because it's a huge part of being a healthy person in general. It reduces that stress on us. And, another thing I talked about too was spiritual care practice. So whatever your faith looks like, whether it's, we all run the gamut, right? We have different beliefs, and I'm not here to, tell you what to believe. But I would say usually most people who are kind of attracted to me, we're kind of spiritual types, right? We're like interested in spirituality, we're interested in the beyond, we're interested in the universe and all that stuff, whatever that looks like for you, right? And that spiritual care practice is a really important part of supporting your immune system, because there is a couple things with this. First of all, there's placebo effect, right? So, either you believe that your prayers are coming true because you manifested them, or because God, granted you mercy or grace, or because you just like believed it in your own mind, and placebo effect, right? But there is something to having some sort of spiritual care practice that does help our lives to make more sense. It helps us to make meaning out of things that go wrong. Things go wrong for everybody, right? We all have to like overcome battles in our lives. I've been through a few myself. But having a spiritual belief system helps us to put that into a context and make meaning out of it. That's not to say that like we don't have to be the type that believes that everything happens for a reason, or any of those other cliches, but it does help us take something that was shitty that happened and turn it into something positive, right? Turn it into something worthwhile. We have the power to do that as humans, to make meaning out of difficult things. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful responsibility and a beautiful power. We can let those things overcome us, or we can find a place where they fit into some sort of lesson for us. I always choose to try to find the lesson in everything, because I really think that life is here to teach me things, and I just hope I'm learning correctly, right? Hope I'm doing it right. But that spiritual care practice is really important for your immune health. It's important for your health as a person. So, yeah. Won't go into that a ton, but whatever that looks like for you, just make time for it. Maybe put it into your rest time. Okay, the last two things, the things you've all been waiting for: testing for deficiencies, and then supplementation. So I think having micronutrient testing done is really, really valuable. And even like stool testing done is really valuable, because you can see where your gut is, like where the health of your gut lies. And then you can address that with supplementation and diet. If you are deficient in different micronutrients, you can use supplements to sort of bring those up. But the biggest deficiency that we always need to test for is vitamin D. And you guys have probably heard this one a million times too, but it is so common to have a vitamin D deficiency. Unless you spend the majority of your day outside without very many clothes on, and you're light-skinned, you probably are vitamin D deficient, or else probably not optimal. Vitamin D supplementation is so, so important for immune health. We know that people who are vitamin D deficient or not vitamin D optimal are much more vulnerable to illness, especially this time of year. Part of it's because the days are darker, cloudier, and also because it's cold, and so we're inside more, and we're just not getting the same level of sunlight. We get vitamin D primarily from sunlight. You'll hear sometimes people will be like, "Oh, you can get it from fish or from certain other foods." Food is really not a good source of vitamin D. It's just not. So there's very little that you'll get from food. You really need to get it from sunlight, with no sunscreen on, or you need to supplement with it, or ideally both, right? I like to do a little bit of both every morning. You know, I mean, I know I'm lucky because I get to organize my schedule as a person who works from home and works for myself. But every single morning I take my baby to the park and we take a walk in the sunshine. And that is so beneficial for my mental health. I cannot even tell you. Like the exercise and the sunlight. And I really think it's the sunlight more than anything. Ideally, you'd like a vitamin D level around 60. Anything over 30 is not deficient, but in my experience, people tend to still have issues unless they're closer up to that 60 range. So that's where I like to sit. I think testing is really beneficial. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you can overdose on it. So you want to be careful with it. You want to make sure you have your levels so that you supplement correctly. But most people, a maintenance dose would be about 5,000 IU a day. Personally, I take 10,000 because I'm inside a lot. But you know, testing will help you sort of figure that out. There is actually a kit on my website under the supplement store where you can test your own vitamin D if that's something that you're interested in. And then supplementation. So the last thing I want to talk about today are some. And then supplementation. So the last thing I want to talk about today are some supplements that we know help boost and support there I said it, that help support the immune system. Obviously vitamin D, but then I also think it's really important to take NAC,